I got 3 words for you. Flieger, bronze, old radium. Okay, so 4 words. But the point is, each of those aspects by themselves makes a watch interesting. Yet they're also not something everyone likes. While some love those features, for others it's a total no-go. Now, take all of those, put them in one single watch, and throw San Martin into the mix, and you know you're going to wind up with a watch that's very interesting, really affordable, and at the same time, potentially polarizing. Or as I like to call it, the San Martin SN0117-Q. For this one, San Martin went with the 41mm wide case, that is then paired with a 50mm lug-to-lug, making it a solid mid-sized watch, or maybe mid to large with that lug-to-lug. Either way, I think it's best suited for those with 7-inch and above wrists. Total thickness comes in at 11.5mm, which is relatively slim for a watch with 100 meters of water resistance, albeit with no screw-down crown, and a standard Seiko NH35A movement, the workhorse of the affordable watch. Total weight is around 80 grams on its leather strap. It has a 22mm lug width, stainless steel case back, just to protect those who have more sensitive wrists. And it's all topped off with a flat sapphire, complete with AR coating. Pretty much what you'd expect from San Martin. And before we get too much further, I do have a couple things I need to let you know. Now, first off, this watch was provided by San Martin, and I don't have to return it, which is why the promotional tag was up. And the second thing is that all of these shots were done over the course of a month. And it was done on purpose just so you can see this watch with different stages of patina. So the macro shots here are fresh out of the box, while some of the shots like this are after a little bit of saltwater patina. The case here is very simple and straightforward. We're talking classic Flieger with an entirely brushed surface and no chamfers, which is perfectly fine for a watch at this price, in this style, and in bronze. I mean, Fliegers were some of the original tool watches, all function, no form. I mean, when you're dogfighting Snoopy, you don't have time for any of those frills. And when it comes to bronze, I personally find it pretty hard to differentiate any of the finer details once the patinas really set in. In fact, with a bronze watch, it's really more often about the patina, which gives every watch an individualized look. So, for the price, the finish is good. And my only complaint would be that the bottom edge of these really long lugs is a little sharper than the rest. That, and I personally would have loved it if the crown was screwed down. The classic onion-style crown here looks great, but having the ability to secure it would be icing on the cake. Although, to be fair here, considering that the second version of this watch is a mechanical, I can completely understand why they didn't go that route. They did it once before, and things didn't quite go as planned. Now, the dial here is where things get a little more interesting. It starts off with a matte black finish, giving the entire thing a bit of a chalkboard look, which is then topped off with a Type A Flieger design, done with a good amount of old radium-style luminous paint. From these macro shots, you can see that it looks really nice and thick, giving everything a very clear definition, as well as contrast when paired with the chalkboard below it. And I think the old radium here does pair nicely with this bronze case, giving it a bit of a faux retro vintage feel. And as a bonus, there are blued hands. Or at least I think they're blued. The pictures on AliExpress make them look all plasticky. But in real life, they do have a nice metallic sheen to them. Generally, I love blued hands, and particularly on a Flieger. Yet here, this is one of the few elements I'm a little mixed on, as I'm just not sure it looks right when paired with a bronze case. As the entire thing feels like they're going for a very vintage look, a rather dulled color scheme from something that's been around a while, even though it actually hasn't. And for the most part, I'd say it works. Depending on the light and depending on the angle, the metallic parts of the hands seem to blend into the black background. So whether or not it was by design, most of the time you just see the white parts of the hands. Yet every once in a while, that blue sparkle from the hands seems to come through. And it just seems to disrupt that monochrome color scheme, if that makes any sense. Like, it just seems to add one too many colors, and just seems to throw the entire thing a little bit off. Although, once again, to be fair here, I'm not really sure what would have been a better choice. Silver hands might seem even more out of place, and black hands would have just blended in too much. So, minor nitpick, but overall it's still a great looking, well-made watch. Now, as for the Lume, do remember that this does have a printed dial, meaning there's no applied indices, and it is done with old radium. So you do have to keep your expectations in check. So for what it is, I'd say it's decent, lasting about as long as a Vostok. But it's not really one that's going to impress, and before their next batch, I think they really do need to up the Lume on the hands. At least to the point that they last as long as the dial. Strap-wise, it's a decent, if not generic-looking genuine leather strap. Initially though, I didn't really like the way it looked, at least not with the fresh, shiny bronze case. But once the patina kicked in, I think it actually looks pretty good. And I do like that it has quick release and a good bronze buckle. Once broken in, it should last you a while. But I should probably point out that most of my time wearing this one, I wasn't actually wearing it on the stock strap. I actually wore it on this Cordura strap with bronze hardware from Vario. Mostly because I was about to head off on vacation and I really didn't feel like breaking in a new strap. But this one from Vario also paired perfectly with it, plus it was more water resistant than the leather. So good stock strap, but if you want to take this one to the next level, go check out that one from Vario. Although, whatever strap you do wind up using, the watch does have a great presence. Initially, I was a little concerned that they might have made a mistake going with a 41, or at least a mistake with my wrist, as there is a little bit of an overhang with those longer lugs and my 7¼ inch wrist. But I gotta admit that after wearing it for a bit, it is overall pretty comfortable, and one I could easily wear throughout the day, including some really nice hot and sunny days at the beach. With regard to value, these are currently priced around $155 US. But I think that might actually be a sales price, and normally I think they're closer to $170. Which overall is a great deal for an automatic, let alone a Bronze Flieger. If you look around on AliExpress, I can guarantee you're going to find some cheaper Fliegers in steel. But if you want bronze, it's always going to be a little bit more and closer to this price range. That and the blued hands are a real plus here. Most other brands aren't even doing it. And even Escapement Time, which used to be one of my best bang for your bucks out there, has gone to plastic looking hands. Now, newer viewers may not realize this, but this is kind of a full circle moment for me, which seems to be happening more and more these days, as the first San Martin I ever reviewed was also a Bronze Flieger, and that was about 4 years ago. Back then, very few people had even heard of the brand. And most of you who watched it thought I was crazy for spending that much on an AliExpress watch. Whereas nowadays, everyone knows them, and spending this much on AliExpress is more the norm. Crazy how things change. Although one thing that hasn't changed is just how impressive San Martin is for the price. And I know that sounds like a commercial, but it really is true. They're basically a factory brand, so you're basically buying factory direct, no middleman. As well as very little service or support after the fact, and that's another cost-saving measure for them. It's good for you when it comes to the price, but again, that's one thing you should always be aware of when buying an AliExpress watch. But bottom line, in terms of value, they are hard to beat. They may not be experts in design or originality for that matter, but they have become masters at cranking out high-quality watches for the price. And this Bronze Flieger is no different. It's a well-made, straightforward bronze tool watch, which in some ways makes it more of an open canvas for you to develop on your own, as the patina will develop differently on each one, and that's kind of the whole reason people love bronze, which is also one of the reasons I'm going to keep it around for a while. And if it's something you're interested in, I think at this point you all know where to go. But before you head out, make sure you let me know your thoughts on this one, as well as hit some other button down there. Really helps the channel. I'm Shane, this is Relative Time, and I'll see you next time.